Thank you for calling Stanley Ford Eastland. How may I direct your call?
Hi, I am calling for Gary, the service writer, please.
Yes, sir. Please hold.
You hearing that?
Yeah, that's bubbly.
Yeah.
I like that. Guys, that's an example of how, I like that. I just felt like I wanted to go there.
It's a nice place.
It sounds like it. I like their music.
Hey, Gary, it's Keith. I am calling to check on, to see how the repair on my RV is going.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into the podcast. I think this is episode 47, maybe? 48? Something like that. Welcome in, everybody.
Okay.
I am in good company with my podcasting partner, Keith, over there. Say hi, Keith.
Hi, Keith.
And you guys know me, I'm Jay. And do we have a lot to talk about today. I'm certain that we're not the only one talking about this right now, but we wanted to chime in and have a discussion about how the novel virus, the COVID-19, is affecting the automotive industry. And not to mention every single industry in the world right now globally. So, yeah. Got to keep the motor running. Yeah, it's true. What happens if it doesn't start?
Well, that was actually me over the weekend. Like, just a lot of that and nothing else.
You want to talk about that?
Sure. Well, it's funny you should ask, Jay.
Yeah, well, I got the phone call from you. And, it seems to me that... I don't know, man. I told you. What do you call that rig? You call it? It's a Thor.
Thor Outlaw. It's a 40-foot Class A motorhome RV.
I told you should rebadge that thing as SOAR.
Yeah.
SORE because
they're all.
It's like it's like a wound that never heals.
It's an RV owner's life, man. It's a
money pit.
Now, this one's on a Ford V10 gasoline chassis. It's a great platform. It's very similar to my truck, which is a Ford V10 also.
Right.
And a little. Actually, before we go down this road, little disclaimer. Everything's blooming outside, and I'm a hot mess right now in allergy symptoms.
Well, I certainly sympathize with you because
if you get a little bit of this going on, it's. You should see me off allergies, off the medication.
Right. And we are not social distancing ourselves, Keith and I, right now. We're physically distancing ourselves.
It counts.
So it counts. And I wish they'd rebadge that, the social distancing, man. I mean, I think there's many ways to socialize during these times, and obviously through FaceTime and Google Duo and Skype and many others, and I encourage people to do that. But unfortunately, and we'll get into this, what happens to the internet is it becomes really it's labored in getting its job done. So, but I think there's major streaming companies out there that are taking steps to keep everybody happy as best as they can during these trying times. So anyway, back to your rig issue. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so back to this whole RV thing. So, spring break, big debate before spring break. Should we go? Should we not? Should I stay or should I go? Right?
Certainly. Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so
we are here to entertain you folks.
And we just thought, look, we're going to a national park. It's literally hundreds of square miles of space. You're not really up on top of people like you would be even at home in our own neighborhood. So we decided to do it, and we had a good time, and it was worth it. The thing that I didn't take into account, and it's difficult at times to sort of factor in all the what ifs, but we had engine problems, and so now all of a sudden the scenario of us traveling in our own home, like, look, we've got a bathroom, we've got a refrigerator, we've got running water, showers, all that. So the only thing I really had to do to go outside for when we're traveling to and from is to get fuel. And I would go pump gas, come back, wash my hands, and take off again, right? Like if the family needs to use the restroom, they go in the RV, okay?
Yeah.
Well, we got into a situation where we overnighted one night in a parking lot, and the thing wouldn't start the next morning. Now, it just so happened that the Ford dealer, this was in the middle of Texas, was like about 500 yards away. I mean, we literally just walked over. But to my surprise, and something that I had not considered, is the supply chain situation of, oh yeah, there's guys there, there's mechanics and techs there to work on it.
Sure.
But if they need parts, they may not be able to get them.
That's right.
So that put us into a situation where, and look, the thing threw all kinds of codes. They started throwing parts at it. They got it to the point where OBD, right? Like Ford has their own diagnostic software and hardware that plugs into that OBD port. If you don't know what that is, go back and watch our two-parter on, what was it, just OBD Part 1 and Part 2, Jay?
Part 1 and Part 2, way back, yeah.
But your car talks to, it has a computer in it. Anything made in, like what, since 2000?
96 and later. If it's a diesel vehicle, it would be 2004 and later. And then you got to be careful. You experienced this on one of
the big stuff, the heavy duty stuff.
The heavy duty stuff. You got to be careful. Just know what you're dealing with. And also, I might add to that, while we're on the subject of OBD, I did a product review on a personal device that you can purchase. It's called Fixed.
You can find that video on,
which is really cool.
Yeah,
you can find that on our YouTube channel, which is really it's a really neat app. And they've changed up some things. You can still get the basic information without having to pay for anything. So, as a little bit of a disclaimer, since we shot that video, there's a premium version. It's not that much more. If you're a mechanic, a do-it-yourself, or a mechanic that's doing it on his own without working for a company, the paid service is actually really good, because then you join a community of technicians out there that add notes to certain problems and stuff, and it's a real quick self-help thing. But if you're not into that and you're just doing it yourself and you're just looking for codes to kind of get you through, then you don't have to pay for anything. Anyway, there you go.
Your car, and this applies to almost everyone, has information, and it can talk to the mechanic. And so they were reading it. They were dealing with the symptoms as they could, right? Like, well, it's not getting gas, and then they, there's a there's a PCM and an ECM, and okay. So they're basically, like, I turned my hotspot on in my RV. The mechanic actually walked 500 yards from the dealership over to me in the Walmart parking lot.
Right,
and,
nice, handy.
Brings his laptop, and he's like, but I got to get back online to download the wiring diagram. So I hooked him up and all that. But they got to a point where they had replaced several things, and all the error codes were cleared, but it still wasn't getting fuel. So now they're into a fuel pump situation. They did not have that part. The guys in Texas told me, look, we will not close, because on the service side, the police are running Fords, the ambulances are running Fords, emergency management's running Fords. I know friends in FEMA, they have a lot of Ford equipment. They got to be able to maintain that stuff. The sales side, the car sales side might go down. But the thing that they cannot control, and Jay, you've got some good experience in this, is the actual supply chain. So there is a misconception here, I think, and I'm willing to bet this, that people think that because that part comes from Ford and you are at the Ford dealer, or if it's GM or it's Chrysler or whatever brand of vehicle you drive, Volkswagen, they think that if I go to the dealership and I buy a Ford part, that part always 100% of the time is made by Ford.
Yeah. It is not the case. You know that.
I know. I was just trying to set you up there. So you
trying to bait me in? Trying to bait me into this conversation? Okay, all right. I'll take that challenge. Whoop, hooked. Yeah, it's an absolute fact that Ford has, as with any manufacturer in the automotive industry, big three, Dodge. If I don't even know that they're even part of the big three anymore, but Chevrolet and GM certainly, or GM and Ford, I should say. They source from multiple, manufacturers globally. It's a global network of supply chain, and that particular part that you're having to replace, it's electronic. The likelihood of that thing coming out of an Asian market is probably high.
So I had a conversation with one of the techs, and he was their electrical guy. So they threw their electrical guy at it first.
Right.
This guy was a really interesting dude, and I would have loved to have I was just dying to go get a camera and sit down with them because they were not busy, right? Because there's just people not coming in. He used to work for the Volkswagen Group, and he was talking to me about the Porsche family, and this is the first time in Volkswagen's history that an actual bloodline family member of the Porsche family has not been running things. And he talked about how heavily electronic focused their vehicles are. Versus now, he said the Ford trucks, they're going back to a more simplistic thing because you've got all these multiple points of failures from an electronic standpoint. And you get into stuff where, this is coming, mark my word, folks. There's going to be malicious, malware type stuff that's going to infect vehicles because they're so dependent these days on electronics. But he started just talking to me about, he said anything on these Fords that's electronic, whether it's displays or pumps or modules, control modules. He's like, that's all coming out of probably Japan. Most of it, he said, is not even made by Ford. It's coming from an Asian market. So he told me, and you and I have not talked about this, exactly what you just said.
Yeah, that's the case. I mean, it is true, and I know that to be the case, and I think that our audience, the guys that are in the folks, period, that are in this industry, maybe not the average person doesn't realize that, but I think most everyone in this industry realizes that product is coming again from it's a global network. And me being in the qualifying plants and procurement side of things, I understand very well what goes on through that supply chain process. So
just because it says OEM right on the box doesn't really mean that it's from a different manufacturer. And we actually did a video on this you can find on our YouTube channel where we talked about, should I buy OEM? Should I buy aftermarket? What are the differences?
OEM,
Sometimes it's the same exact part, but it's branded differently.
Right.
And sometimes it's a completely different part, but you sort of have to know based on the part, right? So anyway, so the supply chain is impacted here, and
big time.
I'm in a scenario right now where we just basically got in the tow vehicle and put the dog and the kid in the back seat and took off and drove 12 hours home. They may or may not have a part on the shelves in the distribution center to ship to the dealer to fix this.
That's right.
And it's a kind of first come first serve scenario, except now it looks like Homeland Security is getting involved.
They are getting involved in this. Basically, you have two classes. You have non-essential and essential, okay? And where these guys are getting involved, you've got personnel that have to stay on post in order to service these emergency vehicles, etc.
Those are typically your techs, your mechanics, your if you're talking about at a dealership, maybe your parts, your service writer,
your service
parts
rider.
manager.
Right.
So all we call it the service side, right? On the service
side of the industry,
to some extent, some of these places are contracted out to what would you call them, Jay? Like third-party repair shops? Like
they are.
Hospitals may have a contract with a local repair shop to service all their ambulance engines or something like that, right?
That's correct. Typically what they do is they'll have certain service centers, reliable service centers, dealerships that will bid on these jobs. And the local municipality has to go through the due diligence of
because it's public
understanding. Right.
funds.
And so they give everybody opportunities to bid on these contracts. So obviously the municipalities are going to and the organizations are going to choose what's the best fit for them and ultimately the best fit for the taxpayer, because that's what it boils down to. That's what, the point we're getting across here is the essential versus non-essential. So the automotive industry supply chain is considered essential. But there is a priority that steps in, which is who gets the part first. And it's no different than what our healthcare industry is going through right now with who gets these masks first. It's the people that are on the front line that are taking care of the sick people out there, that are getting the N95 masks, that are getting the personal equipment that they need to defend against them getting sick. And remember that. You've got people putting themselves on the front lines to keep everything going here. So a technician on the front line in a shop, or a guy or gal standing behind a parts counter at a dealership or a retail parts counter, they're risking their health to service these vehicles.